On July 5th, A24 presents Ty West's Maxine, the explosive finale of Ty West's X trilogy. Maxine Minks back for her stab at stardom, starring Mia Goth, Elizabeth Debicki, Moses Sumney, Halsey, Lily Collins, and Kevin Bacon. See Maxine in theaters everywhere. Get tickets now.
Slashers, huh? What's your favorite scary movie?
Not that one.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking wiener sex, we're talking flower tumors, and we're talking Japanese cyberpunk. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking... Sorry, I had like two choices in case you took one and you didn't take either one. So I was like, oh, which one do I want to pick? And I'm Trace, and we're talking, you want a taste of my sewage pipe?
So I knew that you would want that one, and I deliberately didn't pick it.
Okay, so my other choice, though, was Our Love Can Destroy This Whole Fucking World, because good Lord, Joe, this movie is much queerer than I remember it being.
Right? Yeah, it's definitely laced within there, but by the end of the film, this is a full-on homosexual romance.
It's pretty explicit. Like, you know, I was kind of like, sorry, everyone, we were just...
We're just right into it.
We're just right into it. We are discussing Shinya Tsukamoto's Tetsuo the Iron Man, a movie that, I mean, I think I kind of clued everyone in our outro last week, but this is a film school watch for me, and I have not watched it since.
Right.
I would imagine the casual viewer will struggle with this film.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But, Joe, this was your first time watching it, no?
It was indeed, yes. And what better time to do it than its 35th anniversary, Trace?
That's why we have it on the schedule. I mean, that is super gay, but...
Well, that and the fact that, yes, I'm going to give a shout out to, I think, OG listener Evan Benner, because he has been asking us to cover this forever. So I think I only even added it to the list at his urging.
Well, truthfully, because I had seen this film, but peek behind the curtain, everyone, there are so many movies that I have seen that Joe has not, that I will just forget are queer in some shape, way, or form. So whenever we cover them, and Joe's like, Trace, how could you not tell me this was queer? And I'm like, I forgot.
Well, I mean, that is a reasonable response, particularly when you tell me, oh, I watched this during film school. You're not watching this movie looking for queerness. You're watching it because of whatever subject X. They were like, hey, pay attention to this.
Yeah, and I because I took a horror film class and I took an Asian horror film class. I feel like this was one of the first things we watched. No, actually, no, we went in chronological order in Asian horror. So it would have been like in the middle of the semester. But also, like, I remembered so much from this movie, specifically like the sensory things it evokes in audience members. But yeah, by the time this movie ended, I was like, oh my God, like, it is so explicitly queer. I don't know how I didn't, like, latch onto that when I was, 20 watching this in class.
It is pretty wild, but admittedly, and again, I'll come to your defense here, there's so much going on in this film. Like, you cued me that the sound design was something that is either challenging or it's just very confronting. You know, it's kind of pervasive, and it definitely is. But this movie, I'm going to sound hyperbolic, but it is an experience, right? Like, it's so immersive. And even though it's very short, it feels like you have gone on a whole fucking ride.
Yeah, everyone, this is a movie that is an hour and 7 minutes long. Would we call this art house?
Oh, I definitely think so.
Yeah, that's, yeah. I mean, and I guess, like, what do we mean by art house? To me, it's like, it doesn't follow the rules of traditional cinema, either in storytelling or visuals, or, I mean, like, truthfully, this is the second time I'd seen this movie. I almost watched it again because I was kind of like, I don't know if I picked up on everything, because I again, like, this movie just breaks all the rules for me.
See, I feel like you're not talking about art house anymore. I feel like you're talking about experimental.
Oh, you know what? That is exactly what I'm talking about. Well, so then what would we mean by art house?
I think art house is more what we would traditionally call indie fare now, right? Where it may have a reasonable budget, but it's talking about subjects that might be a little bit more on the margin. They're probably not going to release it to a wide audience because it has more of a niche appeal. But yeah, I do think that you're right that there's some edging into experimental where people may be trying some innovative or unorthodox film techniques. Like, I would call Greg Araki independent cinema. But it's also experimental in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But again, I don't know. I guess I would call some Gregoraki art house too. Yeah, okay, you know what? Whatever. Labels are labels. It doesn't matter.
All this to say, this movie reminded me a fuck ton of David Lynch's Eraserhead, which it is experimental, but it feels kind of like that student film vibe where you've had these ideas percolating within you for years and you just finally get the opportunity to put them on film.
Yeah, and I feel like we'll go into the production soon because I actually have a lot of information because I'm sure people are going to want to know like how the fuck this thing came to be.
But yes,
just generally, Joe, like did you like this movie?
That is a tricky question. So I rated it 4 out of 5 because I do think what it's setting out to achieve, it does so incredibly well. I can't say that this is a pleasurable film to watch, but I also did find myself going back to it a lot over the last couple of days, thinking about key sequences. I'm very interested to hear how it was made because it's obviously a low budget labor of love. So I think there's a lot to admire about this film. But when you told me last week, I've seen it once, I'm going to watch it for this, I don't know if I'll revisit it. I do also understand that because this is not an easy film. Yeah,
I'm in the same boat. I actually gave this a 3 out of 5, but it's a thing where it's like, I really admire this film. I love, again, even reading the production, I was like, okay, like this was a very an enormous labor of love for this man, but it falls squarely into the category of it's not for me.
Sure. Okay.
So
recognize your limitations. That's fine.
Yeah. Which I think also that may be why, because I have heard this like be compared to Eraserhead like you just did. And I think that's why I haven't actually watched my Criterion Blu-ray Eraserhead, because I'm just kind of like, I feel like it's not going to be for me.
Possibly, yeah.
But okay. So everyone, I am pulling all of this from Tom Mez's biography of Shinya Tsukamoto in his book Iron Man, The Cinema of Shinya Tsukamoto, which, by the way, there's a whole chapter on Tetsuo. So I'm not going to lie, some of this is just verbatim me plagiarizing this book. I edited like things that I thought were kind of unnecessary, but it's a really good biography.
Okay. You know what? You've given him credit. Folks, if you want to learn more, now you know where to go and find it, but also Trace is going to entertain us.
I'm going to try. But yes, so Tetsuo the Iron Man was written and directed by Shinya Tsukamoto. And we're going all the way back to his high school years, Joe. So following his high school graduation in 1984, he entered into advertising agencies, which he hoped would give him access to professional film equipment.
Okay.
It took about 18 months before he was allowed to direct commercials. And in those 18 months, he was almost never at home. It was working as a corporate employee for long hours that proved to be a major influence on Tetsuo the Iron Man, unsurprisingly.
Okay.
He was able to return to doing theater work in 1985 because, I love this, he was a theater kid in high school. He loved putting on plays.
Amazing.
His plays, though, retained the experimental style of his previous stage work from school and also connected him with a woman named Kei Fujiwara. And Fujiwara is the woman who plays the girlfriend in Tetsuo.
Right. Okay.
So by 1986, he had quit his job at the Ide Production Advertising Company with the intention of returning to filmmaking. And it was here that he made connections at the Japanese PIA. I'm just going to call it PIA. That's maybe how it's, because it's like all caps. But anyway, the PIA Corporation, who published a cultural listings magazine that will come into play soon. So his first work was The Phantom of Regular Size, a short film made with members of his Kaiju Shiata group. Like it's like a collective that he kind of created by himself.
Right.
With all these friends. And this short film was about a salaryman whose body eventually turns into scrap metal, and it was shot in less than a week.
Oh, okay.
So all you burgeoning filmmakers out there, if you think you have it hard, which, I mean, you do, don't get me wrong, but listen to this. Having already incurred his father's wrath by quitting the advertising job the previous year, Tsukamoto's decision to pursue his filmmaking and, like, start work on a feature was the last straw. His parents threw him out. They considered him a failure. So he was kicked out of their house.
Wow.
With the small income he made from doing voiceover work on TV commercials, he rented a tiny room the size of 4.5 tatami mats, which is apparently about 7 square meters. Yes. So despite this setback, he continued his chosen path and went to work on Tetsuo the Iron Man, the film that had been on his mind for years. I mean, clearly, right? He already made like basically a short film of it.
Mm-hmm.
So Tetsuo was made with the same group of people who worked on The Phantom of Regular Size, and with Kei Fujiwara's apartment again serving as both the crew's base camp and the film's main location. So, The big difference, however, lay in his choice of format. So he upgraded from the 8mm, with which he had been using to work on the short films. He bumped it up to 16mm because not only was it more suitable for theatrical projection, he noticed that the PIA magazine treated independent films shot on 8mm very differently from proper theatrical releases. So they weren't put into the regular cinema schedules, but all stuck together in an indie section in the back that, not a lot of people were going to go that far and look at.
Right. So he's got commercial aspirations for this.
Well, and that's the thing, it's weird. I think he started that way. And with a lot of his short films, he also, the goal was, I have to get this in front of as many eyes as possible. But I think, again, Tetsuo to me it reads like a true passion project. And so I think along the way, he stopped caring how many people saw it and was like, I just got to finish this thing because,
well, yeah,
the production for this film sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Oh, good.
He also decided to shoot it in black and white, which made sense to him because it's a film about metal. So, why not have a metallic looking color?
Oh, and honestly, this film is gorgeous.
Yeah, and I think actually the sequel, Tetsuo 2, The Body Hammer, I think that might be in color. And then the third one, which is...
I didn't realize there was a third one.
Well, so the third one is in 2009. So this is 89, and then the second one is 92, and then the third one, which got really bad reviews, is Tetsuo the Bullet Man from 2009.
Well, that's disappointing.
Yeah. But I think that one's in English, though.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah. But so, okay, at this time, he invested 200,000 yen, which is about $2,000 US, in a 16mm camera and 10 reels of black and white film stock and began production in September of 1987.
Okay.
So the film was expanded from the basic narrative of The Phantom of regular size, with the four main actors reprising their roles. So we have Tomororo Taguchi as the metamorphosing salaryman, Fujiwara returns as the girlfriend and victim, Nobu Kanaoka is the woman who attacks him in the subway station or the train station, and Tsukamoto himself as Yatsu, the metal fetishist. Although I don't think he's ever named in the film as Yatsu. That's what they call him.
Yeah. I saw him mostly credited as the fetishist.
Yeah, exactly. But in flashbacks that offer a glimpse of Yatsu's background, Tsukamoto added 2 additional characters in the Doctor and the Tramp characters.
Okay.
So yeah, they were not in the original short film. Okay, Joe, this Iron Man, the concept for this was inspired, unsurprisingly, by H.R. Giger's design for the creature in Alien.
Okay.
But also the final fusion of man, fly, and telepod in Cronenberg's The Fly.
Yes, this definitely feels like a mixture of David Lynch and David Cronenberg to me. So I was actually really happy when I saw there was acknowledgement. Oh, yes, this is partially inspired by Cronenberg.
And it's interesting, I guess because of the way it looks, it just feels so much older than 1989. So in my mind, I was like, well, clearly this film predates all those things. And it doesn't. It was inspired by all these films.
I mean, the timing is very close. Like, late 80s is when we've gotten the bulk majority of Cronenberg's body horror.
Yeah. Exactly. So the contraption of this Iron Man suit was constructed of a combination of scrap metal and small parts from electronic appliances.
Okay. Yeah.
This created its own set of problems, though, because they didn't say, hey, we're going to use all these specific parts to build it. They just started sticking them on Taguchi, adding bits and pieces until they felt that it looked right. So this guy would just sit there while they worked on the makeup and costume. But at the end, the whole thing was so heavy because it's all fucking real metal.
Right.
He couldn't get out of the chair. And, they collected all of it, took it apart, and from all the parts, they composed the makeup, which was stuck directly on Taguchi's face with double-sided adhesive tape.
Oh, no.
Oh, Joe. So to make the costume lighter, they would remove some bits. But in the end, all this took so long, there was no time left to shoot any scenes. So they'd have to pull it off his body again. And the tape they used to stick the metal was so difficult and painful to take off that they would have... whenever in a movie, when someone has a broken finger and they're talking to them to distract them and then they fix it, they pop it back into place. Okay, This is what they would do with the tape. They would have someone talking to him to distract him while someone else would be on the other side, ripping tape off of his body.
Oh, God.
By the end of the shoot, he said his skin was like sandpaper.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
They did eventually manage to refine the process of applying the effects, eventually turning it into a jumpsuit, which Taguchi would simply put on and take off like a costume. But
right, yes, as you would think.
But Tsukamoto also found a more cinematic way to deal with the problem. So he decided to do one essentially a master shot of the very elaborate full shot of the Iron Man with all the makeup applied. And that would be, the audience sees this, that's our reference point. But then all future shots in the film, he would use less makeup and keep parts off screen, knowing that we as the viewer would fill in the blanks because we'd already seen the thing in its entirety.
Oh, that's just smart filmmaking.
Yep. Okay, so Joe, after 4 months of shooting, and no end in sight, by the way, Tsukamoto began assembling his material into a first edit. Thanks to his former colleagues at IDE Production that he met through the ad agency, he had been able to have his film processed for free, though he did pay them back after, because he did make his money back.
Okay.
During the editing, though, he noticed that he was missing material, so he would go back to capture these additional shots, which only lengthened the production process further. Sure. Filming would take a total of about 18 months, continuing until the end of 1988.
Holy cow. I mean, yeah, I feel like this is where we start to creep into indie territory, where you hear of these people doing almost guerrilla warfare style shoots where it's, okay, everybody, we're back this weekend. Hope you haven't cut your hair.
It is, I mean, at that point, I don't think he would care. But yes, your comparison stands. These shooting conditions sound...
not great.
I don't even know how I would keep going, which actually most people didn't. So all this time, the crew was living and working in Fujiwara's apartment. And inevitably...
No.
I know. And again, this woman just gave up her apartment for all of this. So I was like, how? Like, for 18 months, your apartment is no longer your own. So eventually, these conditions began to take their toll. Taguchi did his best to keep some distance in order to keep a good relationship with everybody. And so he was the only one not staying permanently at the Fujiwara residence. And tellingly, he is the only one of Tsukamoto's collaborators from the period to still be working on his films today.
Ooh, okay, well, that's the writing on the wall, isn't it?
Yeah, so like every day he would go to the apartment and another crew member would have left. Like one day he shows up and the entire lighting crew had gone. So Taguchi, the lead actor in the film, had to do the lighting for some of the scenes himself.
Yikes. Okay. Everybody, pick up something. We're shooting.
But basically, I mean, so toward the end, like only the actors were around. Nearly the entire crew had given up and left. Eventually, Tsukamoto was the only one left. So he did all of the frame-by-frame animation himself because there was nobody around to help him anymore.
Yeah. Ooh, that is really dedication, where you have to have the vision to keep going, because if not, it would have just been so easy to give up.
Well, because these people weren't getting paid. So it's like, you have to just really want to see this through. And only Tsukamoto had that like actual drive because it was his film.
Well, it's also potentially infringing on your livelihood because it goes on for so long. You can't book other gigs, or you couldn't go on vacation. Like, I'm just imagining how much of a commitment this becomes in all facets of your life.
Well, okay, and I want to highlight Fujiwara, though, because honestly, she seems like the Daria Nicolodi to his Dario Argento.
Yeah, as you were describing it, I thought, this relationship does sound familiar.
So, okay, arguments between them were rife. She said that Tsukamoto had a very remarkable talent, and that makes him operate at a certain level of energy, which means he would only take notice of another person's idea if it's expressed with that same kind of energy.
Oh no, you've got to match him on his level?
Yes. So that's what she tried to do. But as a result, they had too many arguments. Like, she gave him her opinion many times because she was serious when working with him, but she couldn't just sweet talk because that wasn't her attitude. So, they eventually, like, this film ended their kind of working professional relationship together. But she, again, like in her interview, she says, I didn't mind that we got into arguments because at least I was expressing my opinion.
Right. I was just trying to be heard.
Exactly. So, as you probably know, Joe, with two headstrong creative minds...
Hey, what are you saying? I feel attacked!
And they both have clear ideas on how to best go about making the film. They butted heads a lot. However, they both note that while their collaboration may have been one of flaring tempers, it also shaped Tetsuo to a large extent. So, in the final credits of the film, Fujiwara is credited as assistant director, costume designer, and the second director of photography. Like, okay... He would trust her to work the camera from time to time, even though there were other crew members that had more knowledge of the camera or that had studied camera and film and cinema. So when he asked her opinion after a take, she wouldn't say a word because she was so tense. But at the same time, she did what she thought was best when she worked with the camera. Whenever she felt that deviating from the storyboard would be better for the film and closer to Tsukamoto's intentions, she would do that. But she was also like, why is he trusting me with this when there are other technically more qualified people to do it?
I mean, it sounds like because, yeah, he actually really valued her as a collaborator, which is refreshing.
And she understood later that he entrusted her because she never did things irresponsibly. So even though she didn't have the quote unquote skill or knowledge to do it, she would be like responsible while doing it.
Right. Well, and there's plenty. I mean, this is an argument for how much you have to be trained versus how much can you learn from instinct or even just being on sets and so on. And it sounds like he understood that she was taking things seriously, had a similar shared vision, and that he could entrust her to take on some of that responsibility.
And I mean, honestly, like, again, it was her apartment. So like, I'm just kind of like, you know, like he even said, you know, during the drill dick scene, which by the way, I can't believe we didn't mention that in the opening of this episode.
Well, you got to save some good stuff for later.
Well, whenever we screened it in my Asian horror film class, that was how people, because, you know, we had some film bros in my class. They'd be like, oh, Tetsuo, drill dick, ah.
Yeah, well.
but he was like, hey, can I drill a hole in your door during this scene? And she was like, yeah, sure. So her front door to her apartment just had a big ass hole drilled into it.
Oh no.
But yeah, so their relationship was never the same after making the film, and while they remain acquaintances, they never worked together again. She actually went off and started her own company. She did direct 2 films herself. One called Organ, which seems almost like a sibling film to Tetsuo in a way that sounds very interesting.
I feel like I've heard of that movie before.
Yeah. So, okay. Filming goes to the end of 88. So in December of 88, Tsukamoto begins assembling a rough cut, coming with a version that was 77 minutes long. And boy. So several months prior to that, at a point when the production ran out of money and being unable to continue shooting, Tsukamoto had attempted to raise money by showing a trailer reel to a number of distribution companies.
Sure.
He was turned down numerous times until he knocked on the door of video distributor F2. And this distributor, they specialized in European and American independent films like Jim Jarmusch and Lars von Trier.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is a little bit weirder, but that feels like it's a step in the right direction.
Exactly. So at F2, though, he ran into former PIA employee Hiromi Ahihara. Now, this guy's boss, he knew him from his advertising work, which again, like, so thank God he spent 18 months working in an actual, like, white-collar job.
I wonder if his dad, because, you know, spoiler alert, everybody, Tetsuo goes on to become this massive cultural milestone. So in the end, he will be able to hold that over his father's head. But I wonder if his dad says, yeah, but if you hadn't done all of that, you know, legitimate work, quote unquote, at the advertising agency, then you maybe wouldn't have gotten so far.
Yeah, I don't know what the relationship with his parents is now. Like, you know, did they ever welcome back with open arms? I don't know.
I mean, he won awards for this movie, so I fucking hope so.
Well, okay, so he finds this guy at the PIA Corporation, and his boss was a man named Fumio Kurakawa, who was the former head of the PIA Corporation. So he already knew, he didn't know Tsukamoto, but he knew about him. So when he came to see him, because he'd used up all of his money and lost half of his crew shooting Tetsuo, he had the fortune of doing so at a time when video companies were doing very well. You know, they had the money to release things like cult movies because of the home video boom.
Right. Oh, that is good timing.
So with the help of F2, Tsukamoto came into contact with Japan Home Video, one of the numerous companies that came up in the late 1980s in that boom. And they were willing to invest a modest sum in the completion of the film. And this was fortunate because Tsukamoto had no idea how to approach the sound design, admitting he needed a professional. So Japan Home Video said, yeah, sure, here's some money. The only thing we ask in return is that we get domestic video rights.
Ooh, I wonder how costly that's going to be.
Well, I mean, who knows?
I mean, at the end of the day, you need sound for this movie. This movie is all about the fucking sound. So you take that money and you run.
And it's the animation, the editing. I mean, again, I don't know what's happening half the time in this movie. Like, I have no shame in saying I had to look a lot of this up to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah. A first-time watch, folks. If you've only watched this the one time and you're very confused, you're in good company.
I do love this, though, because on the Wikipedia summary for the film, it's like right above it. It says, like, note, Tetsuo the Iron Man does not have a conventional narrative. The plot synopsis is adapted from a home video release and a synopsis in Sight and Sound by Tony Raines using notes from the director.
Yeah. She confusing.
Yeah. Okay, so he has to think about the music, and in keeping with the film's main theme, his idea for the soundtrack was to use a recurring pattern of metallic percussion sounds. But basically, use metal objects to create the sound for this film, which kind of reminds me of Bear McCreary's score for the Child's Play remake, where they only used children's toy sounds.
Right. Yeah, it's a bit of a novelty. I do feel like it's something that nowadays would be quite a bit more common.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so here's the thing. So he had the idea of using sound of a beating iron for Tetsuo's soundtrack, you know, like sampling the noise and like just using it as music. But he didn't know any musicians, so he was introduced to several. And it led him to a tape that contained exactly the kind of metallic sound he envisioned. And this tape in question was of an industrial noise outfit called Zeitlich Vergelter, led by a young musician named Chu Ishikawa, whose musical influences included German noise bands, British punk, and new wave groups like Joy Division.
Oh, okay. That's a nice eclectic mix.
Well, so this guy, though, he wasn't a composer. He'd never made music for a film before. And he says, well, honestly, Tsukamoto's character, like the way he spoke, his eyes, his whole personality, again, like kind of what Fujiwara was saying about like just the kind of man he was and the energy he had, it appealed to him more than the film itself. So he was like, I just thought he'd be a really interesting guy to work with. So he said yes without even like knowing anything about the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. This guy's got great vibes. I'm going to work with him.
And I keep thinking about him as like this like middle-aged man, but he's like, you know, in his mid-20s.
He's young.
Yeah. So his directions proved puzzling to Ishikawa. You know, his only direction was to make music only using the sound of metal, which is obviously extremely difficult. Ishikawa was like, okay, like this is impossible. So he followed his own instincts and gradually figured that his directions probably weren't meant literally, but more so that he wanted music to sound like it was made with metal.
Ooh, risky. Okay.
So that's what he did. And good lord, the sound for this movie.
I mean, I know you've described it as grating and challenging, and it is all of that stuff, but it fits the movie so perfectly. Like, I can't imagine this movie with a conventional score.
Well, apparently, because Tsukamoto also edited the film himself, he like said he almost went crazy. Now, these are his words. These are his words, and again, this is dated, but he said, I was practically autistic by the time I finished editing because I could not stand listening to the sounds anymore.
Okay, we'll just chop off that first part because the sentiment is coming through. But yeah, that is not the way to say it anymore.
Not the way to say it, but I understand his point. He finished editing in early January of 89. So, I mean, yeah, it took him a month to edit it. Like, that's fine. But that was almost a year and a half after the first day of shooting. And so he cut down his 77-minute cut by 10 minutes. And basically, the only thing that was trimmed. So he trims the love scene between Taguchi and Fujiwara.
Okay.
He trimmed the flashback to the doctor character, and because there's apparently in the original cut a scene in which the doctor gets murdered by the metal fetishist.
Oh, okay.
So that was cut. He also deleted an interlude from the chase between Taguchi and Kanaoka, the woman who chases him in the subway station.
Yeah, that's also fine.
But here's the thing, though. This sequence would have included a scene in which the woman does an elaborate tap dance. And I was like, okay,
damn.
Like, I would have watched that. But he cut it because the scene stood out too much. Like, it was too singular, like compared to the rest of the film.
Right. And that's still relatively early in the film. So you don't want to have something that takes people out of the film and feels like it's completely out of place.
I mean, we'll talk about it. I still don't know what we're doing in this scene, but
I can tell you, I think I figured it out by reading many other people's responses.
So now we're going into marketing. So while working on the poster, Tsukamoto solicited film critic Yoichi Komatsuzawa, known for his knowledge of fantasy and horror films, for a promotional blurb. And after seeing the film, this guy obliged, but also made a proposal in return. He goes, hey, Tsukamoto, I'll do this poster for you if you give me permission to submit the film to the selection committee of the Fanta Festival in Rome, for which Koma Kutsuzawa was working as the Asian film correspondent for the festival.
Okay.
So, Tsukamoto agrees, and the film was accepted. And he doesn't go, though, because he's like
I'm poor. I'm young and poor.
So, a few days into the festival jury, headed by Troma president Lloyd Kaufman, by the way.
Oh, interesting. Actually, would be a suitable acquisition for Troma.
I think so, too. But nevertheless, the jury and Kaufman pronounced Tetsuo the best film of the festival. And the audience, which included filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky, greeted the announcement with enthusiastic cheers, loudly chanting Tetsuo Tsukamoto as the prize was handed out to a representative for him on stage.
Amazing.
Now, here's where we get into some more like cultural significance here, Joe. And again, I debated including this, but I think it's actually really important.
I think so, especially for people who, again, may have only just experienced this. It's such a confronting film. I think it's important to put this into context so people understand how vital this film is.
Well, because I think, too, and I wouldn't blame you if you thought this, but I feel like if your average person's watching this, they will end this be like, what the fuck did I just watch? How is this art? Like, what do people like about this? I can totally see someone walking away with that. So
I wouldn't go that far, but I could definitely get the, like, what did I just watch? What does it mean?
I feel like my parents would not enjoy this movie.
Okay. Lead with that next time. Okay, so this is Mama Trace's reading of the film.
This is Trace's entire family's reading of the film.
Okay.
The award would be a turning point, not just for Tsukamoto, but for Japanese cinema as a whole. And again, this is all from Mess's book, but like to gauge some of the impact it had on the film community in Japan, it is important to realize that at that moment in time, Japan's film industry was in perhaps its worst ever state.
Oh.
Of the 6 major studios that had dominated film production during the heyday of the 50s, this is like Godzilla time.
Yep.
And that was when the industry reached its peak production of over 500 films per year. Well,
ooh, impressive.
Of those 6 studios, 2 by the late 80s had gone bankrupt. 1 was on the verge of doing so, and the remaining 3 had virtually suspended film production and were concentrating almost exclusively on distributing foreign films and films made by independent production companies. So,
wow.
Audiences, too, had abandoned Japanese films in favor of watching TV dramas in the comfort of their own homes.
Oh, dreaded TV.
And here's the thing. They were only prepared to buy an expensive ticket to watch a film in a generally badly maintained cinema if it followed or was the Hollywood blockbuster model.
Right. Okay. So they had drunk the Kool-Aid and they wanted to watch Hollywood schlock.
Yes. And Japanese films, like, they continued to gain prizes at like foreign film festivals, but they did nothing or very little to change the fortunes of the film industry back home. So basically, Japanese film in the 80s was a wasteland, and the studio era was over, and even the Japanese new wave, like the generation of filmmakers that came and the Japanese film business as it had previously existed had come to a complete and total end.
Interesting, because that actually sounds like the peril of a number of national cinemas, right? You get force-fed this diet of, no offense, American Hollywood films. Mm-hmm. You don't value the films that are made at home, and they don't make any kind of impact except on the festival circuit, where other countries are saying, oh, these are really good movies. What do you mean nobody in your home country is watching them?
Isn't that the weird thing, too? It's, like Japanese people weren't watching Japanese movies. They didn't want to do that.
I mean, Trace, you're talking to a person who lives in a country where we hate our own movies.
That is true.
People do not watch Canadian movies in Canada. I mean, that is a very broad generalization. There's tons of people who do. But like the reputation is, oh, why would I watch this when I could watch an American film?
Exactly. Well, and so for an independent, low-budget Japanese film made by a young newcomer to win an award at a foreign film festival in this situation, like, it was...
That's huge.
As a minor miracle. So even before Tetsuo, like, older directors, would send their films to foreign festivals, but there was no real excitement from the audience for those films.
I mean, that's the thing. This is such a button pushing kind of movie. You are going to have a reaction to it. So I can understand the sense of this is new, this is exciting, it's very different. And maybe that's what people were grabbing onto.
Well, and so it wasn't simply the fact of winning an award that made Tetsuo stand out. What the film did also was essentially create a following, in particular overseas. And he doesn't use the word cult film, but I would describe it as such.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
With his film, Tsukamoto found and perhaps created an entirely new audience for Japanese films. And these were not the cinephiles that had grown up with Akira Kurosawa or Yasuhiro Ozu or Kenji Misoguchi. This was a new generation of fans who regarded Tetsuo not as a rupture with an established image of Japanese cinema, but as a film that fitted snugly into a pantheon of genre works that included, as we've mentioned some of these, Blade Runner, The Terminator, Eraserhead, and then the works of Cronenberg, Sam Raimi, and Clive Barker. I love that they named up Clive Barker too.
Well, this is proper body horror, baby. Like, there's sexiness in the way that people are fetishizing metal. So to me, yeah, that fits.
Well, and Tsukamoto, actually, he considers Blade Runner and Videodrome the parents of Tetsuo. And so...
I can see it.
This ties into... And I think this is maybe why I don't, love this movie as much, because, cyberpunk is not something I've ever particularly been interested in.
Rude.
I know. I just don't care.
I mean, this is true, right? Like, you famously are not a huge fan of Blade Runner, whereas I'm like, please kill me for that movie because I love it so much.
I've never seen Blade Runner. I've never seen Blade Runner or 2049. Like, I just I know.
I don't think I knew that. And I'm not judging you. I'm just like, oh, wow. I wish I could be in your shoes and experience those movies again for the first time.
And maybe I'll watch them because aren't we getting a TV show of Blade Runner soon?
We are with Michelle Yeoh.
Oh fuck! God, I'll watch Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049.
Don't make it sound like a punishment, Trace.
I'm trying not to have the mentality that I'm not going to like it, like when I walk into it, because I feel like that's going to make me not like it. So
sure,
I'm trying to be optimistic, but
okay.
But nevertheless, again, outside of creating this new audience, the pivotal element in the acceptance of Tetsuo abroad was cyberpunk. And so generally, this word is derived from the title of a 1983 short story by American science fiction writer Bruce Bethke. And that story revolves around a small band of computer hackers in a future who use what to all intents and purposes are laptop computers and the internet. Again, this is the 1983.
This is future focused, people.
Yeah.
The internet was not a thing in 1983.
But they use it to manipulate official records, bank accounts, and their own school grades, which again, I think that's where the punk part comes from,
Love it.
So the term cyberpunk eventually came to designate a subgenre of science fiction, both in literature and cinema that explored the role of the human body in a future urban world increasingly dominated by technology. And this was, of course, a designation that Tsukamoto was more than happy to accept.
Love it. This movie is a good fit for that, too.
So to young foreign audiences reared on the American genre films and the cyberpunk phenomenon, Japan quickly became the new promised land, in no small part thanks to another Japanese film that was made and started finding its way abroad.
Akira,
exactly.
Yes!
Which, by the way, I feel like I watched these back, they were a double feature in 2 weeks in a row, because I definitely had to watch Akira for my Asian horror film class too.
Oh, wow. You were having quite the couple of weeks there in film school.
I've got to rewatch Akira too, because it was just one of those movies where I was like, I just don't think this is for me.
Oh, and here's the thing. It may still not be for you, because if this is not connecting with you, there is a lot of similar elements between the two.
Right.
But I am going to make us cover that, because I firmly believe that the character in that film, Tetsuo, as well as Kaneda, they love each other.
Absolutely. And so, this is Katsuhiro Otomo's animated adaptation of his own manga, Akira. While the manga of Akira existed prior to Tetsuo, but the film came out after Tetsuo.
Right.
As you said, Akira features a character called Tetsuo, but Tsukamoto says that he was not influenced by the manga when he made the film. So
it's a little suspect. I mean, I don't know for sure. It's just more, I wrote in my notes, okay, so the salaryman, Tetsuo. And then the answer is no. There is no character named Tetsuo in this film. I don't know what the title refers to, if not Akira.
Unless you want to say the salaryman is Tetsuo. But yeah, again, given what happens to Tetsuo in Akira, it's kind of it seems like a one-to-one comparison to me, but maybe not.
Who are we to say?
But because Joe, you may have more information about this than I do, but because with Tetsuo, with Akira, was there ever a specific brand of Japanese cyberpunk outside of these?
Okay, so this is a leading question because, yes, I am going to pull from a piece by Mark Player called Post-Human Nightmares, the World of Japanese Cyberpunk Cinema for the website Midnight Eye, but I'll just give you this blurb to help contextualize it.
Okay.
So, live action Japanese cyberpunk is raw and primal by nature and characterized by attitude rather than high concept. It's a collision between flesh and metal. The subgenre is an explosion of sex, violence, concrete, and machinery, a small collection of pocket-sized universes that revel in post-human nightmares and teratological fetishes. Powered by a boundaryless sense of invasiveness and violation, imagery is abject, perverse, and unpredictable, and like Cronenberg's work, bodily mutation through technological intervention is a major theme, as are dehumanization, repression, and sexuality.
So, okay, that also just sounds like, well, I guess, because cyberpunk doesn't necessarily have the body horror. So it sounds like Japanese cyberpunk, really, really includes body horror as a main component.
Yeah, you'll often see things like body modifications in cyberpunk where people are using technology to augment their human capabilities, right? So they get, surgery to remove one of their eyeballs so that they can have a scanner put in, or they, put in sensors under their skin so they can feel more things, or jack into computers and that kind of stuff. So it's very much in there. I've gathered it's the sexuality component that feels a little bit different. Sex is obviously everywhere, but I've will personally admit that I've never really found cyberpunk super sexy, or at least not in a lot of the texts that I've consumed. And then I think the other big piece is that idea of like concrete, like the Japanese cyberpunk stuff is much more about like downtown locations. So even if people have seen something like Ghost in the Shell, where it feels like the city is the only location, like there is nothing beyond the downtown core. And we see something like that in Tetsuo, right? Where there is no suburbia, there is no outside of the metropolis.
Yeah, and so I realized as I'm talking about this, so I kept getting it confused with steampunk, which is...
Oh, yeah, totally different.
But I see, I do like steampunk aesthetics a lot more than I like cyberpunk aesthetics. So, like, you know, like cyberpunk aesthetics, like where it's kind of like taken from a post-apocalyptic and dystopian setting with advanced technology. Like, steampunk is like 19th century industrial aesthetic, but happens to be in like a futuristic world still.
Yeah, usually steampunk is a little bit more fun.
Yes,
well.
Exactly. I think maybe that's why I like it. Like, there's something very nihilistic about cyberpunk that I get it. I just don't gel with it.
Yeah, I guess the other big thing that I would use to distinguish between Japanese cyberpunk, and I'm not claiming to be an expert here, is that in North American texts on cyberpunk, it's often individuals against the corporate world or like the man, the system, and so on. So you get a lot of people who are trying to like go up against mega corporations that are controlling the world. Whereas in something like Tetsuo, in something like Akira, there's still that element of authority, but it doesn't feel like we're trying to stick it to the man.
Got it. Well, so with Tetsuo and Akira, like, it kind of helped enforce the impression among foreign audiences, meaning us, that Japanese cinema was the heir apparent to the American genre cinema of the 80s, which is actually really interesting, though, because I feel like that's also what happens when we enter that J-horror craze, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, a new cult following for sci-fi animation was quickly catered to by enterprising distributors who released numerous titles in the wake of Tetsuo and Akira, forming the start of a renewed long-term foreign interest in Japanese film.
Amazing.
So, Tetsuo went on an uninterrupted run around international film festivals that would continue for the next 3 years. And
whoa!
I
Holy
know.
shit!
I mean, again, you're not showing this in American theaters. Like, this is not getting a wide release, you know.
But I would have thought that we would have dropped this on VHS and tried to make a quick buck.
Well, that's the thing, is like by the time it gets a US release, like Tetsuo 2 is being released in Japan.
Wild. Okay.
So it receives a theatrical release in England in 1991, followed by the US in early 92. And then the road was paved for Japanese cinema to regain its permanent fixture on the international film circuit. And so it's a thing where it's like, again, like this isn't really like about the film itself proper, but more so like how important Tetsuo was to, like, I mean, it was kind of like the Scream, like reviving the horror genre, right? But it revived the entire film industry of Japan.
Yeah, Scream... Okay. Yeah, I'm going to let that one slide.
It's not a 1-to-1 comparison. It is not, but...
I love the enthusiasm. No, you know what? I think that probably worked for a ton of people. And honestly, I'm willing to bet if we had asked our listeners in advance of this episode dropping, like, how many of you have heard of Tetsuo? How many of you have seen the film? The number is probably going to be very small, which, like, sure, this movie is turning 35. That's why we're doing this episode. But I'm willing to bet that there's a vast majority of people who have never even heard of the film. And it's not like it's an antique. It's not like it's a classic of the 40s or something.
Yeah, and that's what, like, okay, this is kind of a tangent, but, like, did you see that, like, anecdote from Fede Alvarez? We're dating this episode, by the way, but there was an anecdote from Fede Alvarez where he said, like, you know, he was having 20-somethings come in to audition for Alien Romulus, and he would ask them, you know, what their favorite Alien film was. And they said, oh, it's one of the first two, but it's Prometheus. And meaning they didn't realize there were 4 other Alien films, 6 if you count AVP, made before Prometheus. So they only knew Prometheus and Alien Covenant, and that really grinded my gears. But
it's one of those things, though, right, where there's so much media to be consumed, and if you think about it, there's going to be huge gaps in our media awareness just by virtue of when you're born. It's one of the reasons I like doing a podcast, is because hopefully we expose people to a couple of different texts that they have maybe never heard of, right? Like, it's why we program this film. We could have just done a really familiar Hollywood film and gotten way better download numbers. But we said, you know what? Here's an exciting text that deserves the coverage.
Well, and again, like I caught myself because I was like, well, but I remember being in film school. I started my sophomore year, and again, going through all these films, half of which I never heard of Tetsuo when I watched this film in college. I didn't, and so I was kind of like, oh my god, what are these random films I've never heard of that like my teachers are making me watch? But then there was like, but it's also because there were other kids in the class that did know these films, and so where I was in high school, I was the movie guy. And when I went to college, I was like, oh.
You're not the movie guy anymore?
I'm not the movie guy anymore.
Yeah. No, I felt that. I mean, I only started watching foreign films the year before I went to college. My very first foreign film that I remember vividly watching, or maybe it was just in theaters, was Run Lola Run, which is like a 1999 film.
Yeah. So I had to watch that in film school too. Actually, that was in my just my intro to media class because I think we were learning about different editing styles.
Oh fuck, I love that movie so much.
I actually haven't seen it since, and I love that movie so much.
If you want to talk about great soundtracks that match the film, there's one.
And it's like a multiverse movie too.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have called it that back then, but that's kind of what it is. Anyway, okay, well, luckily, though, Tsukamoto had become an overnight sensation, basically, especially with producers whose attitudes had completely changed. So many of the companies that he had contacted when he was looking for funding for Tetsuo, they turned him down or they kept him at arm's length. But after the film won that prize in Rome, some of them went to him and goes, oh, we were very seriously considering supporting your film.
Bullshit. How about a big load of go fuck yourself?
And this is wild because Tsukamoto had at one point seriously considered burning the film's negatives due to all the troubles that plagued him and the film's production. So today he feels, whatever hardships he and his crew endured were worth it. Tetsuo, it did mean a permanent rupture with most of the friends and creative collaborators with whom he had spent the better part of a decade making stage plays and short films. But he says he has no regrets. And I mean, again, look at the career it gave him, so...
Well, yeah, I mean, the fact that it all paid off and he's able to look back on this in hindsight and say, not great, but also look at what it got me is fantastic. But yeah, I think of how many people had probably similar experiences to this, trying to make that leap into features and burn the bridges, run out of money, and don't end up with a completed film, or it doesn't get distributed, or nobody ever sees it, it doesn't win awards. That's rough. Like, again, filmmaking is just so hard, and my hat's off to people who make them.
And so, the reported or most accurate budget I found is $100,000 for this movie, which even that though, I mean, oh my god, some of the effects of this movie, they're
great.
It's the animation too. The animation is, again, creepy ass stop motion shit, but whoa.
I was gonna say, I was thinking of you. That's stop motion.
It didn't bother me as much because it's mostly just metal wires and shit, and it's not like people, but it's still I'm still okay, I know what this is.
You tried to fool me, and I don't like it.
Reviews, again, very positive. We're looking at an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 7.1 out of 10, and then our film bros of Letterboxd have given it a 7.8 out of 10.
That's actually higher than I would have expected.
Well, because, again, as you said, I don't know how many people that on Letterboxd have heard of this movie, and if you have, you're probably a cinephile.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I told one of my really good friends, Matt, that we were covering this week, and he was like, oh my god, I don't have a microphone, but if I did, I would love to come on your podcast and talk about that amazing movie.
Wild. Okay, yeah. So you either know about it and you haven't sought it out because it just doesn't sound like it's for you, or you sought it out because you're a cinephile and this is your jam.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm in the minority. I respect this movie. I like it, as I said, but people love this movie. This is a hugely influential film, and so it's just, again, going back to my well of not for me.
There you go.
All right, Joe. So what happens across the course of this hour and 7 minutes?
Trace, I ended up with a plot summary that's almost the exact same length as normal.
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know how this happened, but also I have no dialogue to gain or lose space from.
Okay, so honestly, even taking notes on this movie, I was like, it's stream of conscious. It's not stream of conscious, but it's where I'm just typing what I'm seeing, but not making any sense of it.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to do a little bit of work on that, and just because Evan was the one who did bring it to our attention, I'm going to give him credit. So I'm going to be drawing a little bit from his piece, Finding Radical Queer Pride in Tetsuo the Iron Man, and that's for Horror Press from just this year.
All right.
Okay, so Here we go. So we begin with handheld camera, and we are following Yatsu, or the fetishist, who is, as you mentioned, played by Tsukamoto himself. Mm-hmm. And I will confess, it took me the entire opening to discover that this is not the salaryman.
Me too. I had no idea.
I had it in my notes. I was writing the salaryman because I saw that was the credit listed on IMDb and Wikipedia. And then it was only after the movie finished, I was like, wait, no, that's not right.
And again, I just think the mere concept of this character, he's a character that likes putting metal in his body. Like, that's the name, metal fetishist. And I think just watching this, you're like, why is he? Because we open on him just opening up a vaginal wound on his leg to stick a metal pipe in it.
Yes. Yeah. So he is surrounded by metallic equipment and paraphernalia. Like, a large portion of this film, yes, does take place in a very small space, which of course is actually the apartment that you were referencing. Mm-hmm. But we do see a lot of shots of almost like metalwork, factories, dumps that are comprised almost entirely of metal equipment and so on. So this is where the fetishist is hanging out. And yeah, the movie opens, no context, no idea who this character is. He wanders through this environment, opens up the leg and sticks a rebar in it. And he is screaming, and eventually he notices that there's maggots in the wound. Yeah. So time is also very fluid, very malleable in this world.
And I think that's also a struggle I have. Is where I'm like, wait, how much time has passed? Like, there's no clear passage of time in this film.
No.
But we also, again, we're starting our kind of fetish with penetrating men.
Yes. Yeah, so he is self-penetrating. It almost could be seen as a form of masturbation, but even before he sticks it in, he runs it through his teeth.
Ooh,
so again,
good sound.
Great sound effect, but it feels sexualized, right?
Yes. And everyone, if you've not watched this movie, just to really clarify the sound of this film. So it's not just the sound. It's not the normal sound of like a runged bar going through his teeth. It's enhanced. It's inhuman. It's not normal, you know? It's amplified by 1,000.
Yes. Yeah, it's got great reverb on it. So when you hear any of these metallic clangs, it just has a heavier weight to it. It just feels like you're constantly being bombarded with metallic industrial sounds throughout the entire film.
The entire fucking thing.
Yeah. Which clearly bothered you more than it bothered me.
But again, here's the thing, though. Like, it bothers me, but that is the point. Like, this is an undeniably effective film. I think it's a literal assault on the senses.
Yeah. Definitely the ears, at bare minimum.
Yeah.
Okay, so after he sees these maggots crawling around the room, the fetishist does have a freak out. So we see him running down the street. He is limping with the injured leg. So initially I thought, oh, this is a hallucination. Nope. He actually did this to himself, and now he's trying to more or less flee from his own injury. But he runs into the street, and we see a car approaching, and I love the way that this hit and run, well, it's sort of a hit and run. It's like a hit and carry, but I love the way that it's shot. Like, we see the car approaching, and then we spin as though we are the fetishists over the hood. We're seeing the headlights. Like, it's just really creative because it's not a traditional point of view, but it kind of is.
Yeah. But again, even at this point, I was kind of like, wait a minute, like, what's happening right now?
What's happening?
Yeah.
So we do hear the sound of a crash, and then we have a number of fade to blacks that are interspersed with machines, like just kind of static images of different machines, different metals, and so on. And then we push in on the blinking face of the salaryman. This is Taguchi. And he is shaking and contorting. This is intercut with images, again, of various factory machinery. And we get the title that is hissing like static on a television as it moves from right to left.
And again, because we have this shot, it's so funny. I wrote Tetsuo as the name of him, but that's clearly, again, not his name. So the salaryman is like in a business suit, flailing around in like a factory. So he's not in the car, so he's moved location. So this is meant to be like what? Like,
this is later. This is quite a bit later.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, and of course there's no hint that there has been a passage of time. We have to piece it together from the various bits of flashback that will accumulate over the course of the film.
Because I guess you could argue, well, the fade outs, the fade to blacks indicate the passage of time, but again, still, it's not even clear until later.
No, and it's not done in the traditional fade to black like we would normally see in a Hollywood film.
Right,
which is what we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yes, he is shaking and he is contorting. We see that his suit is bulging, like his form is changing underneath his clothes. So something is going on to this man that he doesn't have full control over, and he begins to scream. And then we cut and we see him shaving in front of a mirror, and then a metal shard explodes out of his cheek.
No, you're not describing this correctly, though. This is
I'm not describing it to your standards.
No, this is a metal pimple that he tries to pop. And it's so funny that we're watching this a week after we just talked about popping pimples in Planet Terror last week. But because it just looks like a metal stud almost. But the way he touches it, he's trying to pop it like a pimple. And boy, oh boy, does it pop. And it's blood, not pus, thankfully. But like the sound, again, of the popping is just like, nope, didn't like it.
Yeah. It's quite dramatic. I think one of the things that's also really effective is that he looks scared. Like he does not understand what is going on. So it's really easy to put ourselves into his position because we're confronted by all of this surreal, not quite dreamlike, but it's imagery that doesn't fully make sense to us. But then we see that, our main character also doesn't really understand what's going on.
I couldn't even tell because he was sweating so much that I couldn't stop looking. This guy is constantly wet in this movie. It's ridiculous.
Yes. Probably because they're in a very tight space and have movie lights on him.
Well, so I couldn't tell actually if it was like, clearly it's a conscious, like it's an intentional choice to have him be sweating this much. But like, I was like, or was it, as you said, was it a result of, we're in a tight space with a bunch of lights and it's really hot, so we're just going to use that in the film, you know?
I mean, it could be both, but I definitely look at this as it's a sickness. He has been infected with something. Yeah. And here's my not hot take. This is a possession movie.
I mean, yeah, it's just not a traditional possession movie because it's metal instead of like an actual like ghost demonic entity thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Shinya, or the fetishist, is something of a ghost, right? Because he can take control of other people's bodies.
Right. Which, again,
it's not clear.
I truthfully did not get that until I was reading up on the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
But then again, it makes sense when you watch it because a lot of what happens seems like happenstance. It's like, oh no, like he's psychic.
Yeah, he's psychic. He has all sorts of extrasensory abilities, and he is on a revenge quest against this guy.
Yep.
Okay, so this salaryman. So he has just popped this pimple, he covers it up, and then we see him having a very bland, very repetitive conversation with a woman who will eventually be revealed to be his girlfriend, who is played by Fujiwara. And they're basically just saying, like, how was your day? No, how was your day? No, you go. No, you go. Like, this relationship is either very shallow or it's very bland, or they've been together for so long that they have nothing to say to each other.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he doesn't seem very interested in her. That's, again, where I think we'll bring Evan's piece into it a bit, because, again, he kind of clues into that, where it's like, he doesn't seem to have a lot of interest in the opposite sex. He continuously seems to have more interest in the male sex.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because as he's having this conversation with this woman who we've not seen, we're only hearing her voice on the phone, he is jumping back to what we will eventually learn are flashbacks of them having sex in the woods. So initially on a first time watch, I just thought, he's having a pedantic conversation with a woman he would either rather be fucking, or he's thinking about fucking some other lady while he's on the phone with her.
But he's actually remembering that after they dumped the metal fetishist body after hitting him with their car, they proceeded to fuck next to him. But again, during this scene, he's looking at the metal fetishist while he's fucking his girlfriend.
Yes. Okay, but that's in the past, and we're in the present. So we're having this boring conversation, and then she asks him if he's okay after this car accident. So technically we are linking things together. It's just that we as an audience don't understand how to do that just yet because we don't have all the necessary details.
Exactly.
But yes, he is sweating profusely. Then we cut the action and he is presumably on his way to work. So he's riding the subway and then he ends up getting off and he sits next to this woman in glasses who is played by Kanoka. And initially she seems like a normal lady. And then they're just sitting on this bench and then she looks down and she sees what appears to be a metal bird on the ground. And this is where I was just like, oh God, here we go. I'm so confused because she looks at this bird and we see things from her point of view. And inside the bird appears to be a small man.
Yeah. So watching this my second time in 15 years, I was just like, what is going on? Because she seemingly gets infected by this bird again. And so it's not just the salaryman and the metal fetishist that get infected. Like, there's something else going on in this world. It's affecting everyone. We're just focusing on these two particular people who I guess...
No, it is just the two of them.
Yeah, but like she gets infected by metal too.
Well, yes, because that's how the metal fetishist gets closer to the salaryman.
Okay, but I will say, because most people do classify this as a horror film, I do think this is the most traditionally like horror movie type scene in the film.
Right, yeah. So she's looking, she sees this man, she pokes at it with like a pen or something, and this is seemingly where she gets possessed by the spirit, the ghost, the energy of the fetishist. Again, it's not super clear initially. Like, she pokes it, and then all of a sudden she's acting incredibly erratic. Think of The Evil Dead.
Yep. I did. As you were saying that, I was thinking, oh yeah, like Evil Dead.
So after she pokes this metal bird, we sort of jump back to the salaryman's position. He's looking at her, and all of a sudden, the arm that she used to poke this bird has been transformed. So basically, up to the elbow is now this metal appendage.
Yeah. And then we get like a chase scene, basically.
Yeah. So she chases him down a flight of stairs through a tunnel. She ends up locking him in a bathroom stall. She climbs on top of it. So he tries to skirt around her, and she ends up grabbing him, lifting him off the ground with just one arm. And then we seem to see the cybernetic arm going towards his open mouth, and then that's when we cut to black, and he's suddenly back at his house.
Well, okay, but it's not just that he's back at his house, though. So this a recurring shot in this movie, or series of shots, is these really extended, like, fast motion tracking shots to, I guess...
We're speeding up the film rates.
Yeah, so we're basically, like, instead of watching him walk, we're in his POV in, like, super speed going home, which, again... I don't think it's super clear at the first, but...
No. And this one's interesting because it feels like it's rewinding. So it's happening super quickly, but we're retracing our steps back. And again, it makes you wonder, okay, so was that a dream? Was it a hallucination? Did any of this actually happen?
So I thought what we were going to be getting is, okay, we're rewinding, and then we're going to see maybe this from like a different perspective, or go to the metal fetishist side and see what he's doing. I mean, obviously we know what he's doing, but but again, like, because the rules of what I know about cinema, it tells me that's what we're doing if we're moving backwards at a fast speed, you know?
And instead, no, we're just back at home, and he goes to shut the door, and suddenly this woman in the glasses is there. She's still got the metal fucking arm. She's actually more covered in metal now. It looks like she's evolving or changing as we go.
Ooh, and there's a great moment where she squeezes her breast, and like blood pops out of it.
Yeah, she does. And then I put a tire iron in my notes, but he's got some kind of weapon that he's going to try to use against her. She just rips it out of his hands.
Yeah.
And basically they're locked in an embrace. So he begins punching her in any way that he possibly can. And every time he hits her, we get this interior image of the fetishist getting rocked around, almost like how you would see baby cam inside or something.
Right. So basically because he's the one that's like inside of her, like it's affecting him and his hold on this woman.
Correct. Yes. Okay. So eventually we get a knockout blow. We knock this woman in the glasses unconscious. It's a very stylized, almost like prize fighting boxing moment.
Yeah, because because when they're in that embrace, it's almost like he breaks her back. Like he squeezes her so hard that her back breaks.
Yeah. So basically, she's down for the count. We won't see her again, but the damage has been done because the fetishist has gotten close enough to get to the salaryman. He is effectively infected. I mean, he technically already was.
But it's like speeding up the process or something?
Yeah. I think it's almost like checking on you. Hey, how's that mutation going? Just wanted to stir things up a little.
Because that's the thing, like the relationship between the metal fetishist and the salaryman, it seems to be one of revenge. Like, hey, you hit me with your car, you dumped my body,
Right.
I'm coming to get you.
Yeah.
And that's where we are right now. And also, I do love, because the salaryman raises his arm, he's got this metallic growth on his arm that's also pulsating. So this is, we don't get a lot of, actual, shots of, flesh makeup effects mixed with the metal. It's mostly just the metal. But I thought this was really impressive because the flesh is pulsating with the metal all around it.
Yeah. And again, this is very Cronenbergian. It's Videodrome, it's Existence, and all that kind of stuff. So...
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually really like this moment where we see the salaryman kind of moaning and contorting in the stairwell. It actually reminded me a little bit of the new Suspiria.
Oh, you know what? I would not be surprised if Guadagnino took some inspiration from this for that, for the dance scene even.
Yeah.
On July 5th, A24 presents Ty West's Maxine, the explosive finale of Ty West's X trilogy. Maxine Minks back for her stab at stardom, starring Mia Goth, Elizabeth Debicki, Moses Sumney, Halsey, Lily Collins, and Kevin Bacon. See Maxine in theaters everywhere. Get tickets now.
Okay, so as you said, the salaryman, he now has basically lost his right arm, but he also has lost an ankle. So the ankle is covered in metal, and it fires like a rocket. So this ends up propelling him down the street. Again, we're doing super sped up motion, but the way that this is shot, I described it. I know that there's a technical term for it and I could not figure it out, but it's almost a montage of still images that have been put together. Which I know just sounds like how you project film. But...
Well, it sounds like a flip book, but not the same image projecting movement.
Yeah. I was thinking, in old timey movies or like the It movie where they've got the slideshow and they just speed it up faster and faster.
I think it's called a rotoscope.
People are yelling at us.
Sorry, filmmakers, listeners that are out there. We're describing it.
Yeah, we're doing our best. We're doing the layman's version of this.
Also, it's definitely not rotoscope. Rotoscope is what they do in a Scanner Darkly when you trace over live action.
Yeah, okay, it's not that.
So it's not that. But yes, anyway.
Okay, so he is basically hoofing it down the street, but it seems to be against his will. Is he actually even controlling this? We don't know.
No idea.
Okay, so from this, we then cut back to the salaryman watching his girlfriend dancing. She's in a bikini. And then we will eventually come to discover that this is a nightmare, but we don't know it initially, though you figure it out because she does seem to have a big metal proboscis-y dildo thing.
It's a big tube that comes out of her, I want to say stomach. It's not even coming out of her crotch area, but... We will not know it's a nightmare until after she actually rapes him. But yeah, so this proboscis comes out, this metal tube, and she proceeds, he gets on all fours and she proceeds to rape him anally.
Yeah. So he ends up waking up from this. He was screaming, so this is not something that he was super into, or it's something that he's not ready to accept about himself just yet. So he's dreaming about it, and then he's like, oh, that was a weird dream. Why was I thinking about getting sodomized?
Exactly. Yeah. So this is, again, if we want to go into our queer read of this and, go latching on to Evan's read of, hey, this is kind of a queer, not an empowerment journey, but, self-discovery, let's say.
Right.
He's learning, this is something that I like, even though he wakes up and it's this is very much a nightmare, not a happy, wet dream.
Yeah. It's something that he's not ready to accept about himself yet.
Yeah.
Or you could also argue that it's someone was doing it to him that he doesn't have romantic feelings for.
Well, actually, that's the other thing, too. Yeah, I guess, why is it the girlfriend doing this to him? Unless it's maybe just, she's the only romantic person in his life, and so, he's fantasizing about this. But,
yeah.
But it also, I could view this as, afraid of women or something like that.
Possibly.
I don't know.
So he does wake up and he washes his head. And then this is when he checks on the status of his cheek. And it's not better because it just sprays blood against the mirror all over again.
Gross. And he's sweating so much. Like the bandage is covered in sweat.
Yes. So the girlfriend does ask him what's wrong. She wants to know what's going on underneath the bandage. But when he looks at it, it is fully metal now.
Oh, yeah.
So his metallicization is progressing along nicely.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if it's like right at this point or maybe it's after their sex scene, but like it's like basically his cheek is gone and it's replaced with metal scraps.
Yeah, it's here.
Okay.
So they do proceed to have sex. This, to me, was the most offensive sound effect part of the movie. Like, the sounds of them having sex is so squishy and icky.
Well, see, I didn't even mention that in my notes because I was preparing myself for the fork in a minute, but it's also the breathing because yes, this isn't a silent film. Like there is some dialogue in it, but very minimal. Right. But the breathing of these people actually is, I think, also very disruptive.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting sex scene because it looks like he's more aggressive than her. Like, she's definitely an engaged participant.
Right.
But in the way that, like, they're fucking, but she simultaneously looks like she is trying to get away from him. Like, she's retreating. She's seemingly climbing up the wall, but we're having a good time, ?
Yeah, I guess. Like, she does not seem to be bothered by... Because to me, I feel like you would touch the thing on his face at some point. Like, you would feel this metal, but whatever, it's fine. Right. Yeah. Logic doesn't matter here.
No. So we take a breather because things aren't quite working. So we have a meal, some kind of noodle dish, as well as hot dogs, very sexualized.
I think it's eggs and sausage. It's breakfast.
It could be eggs. I could have sworn I saw like a mac and cheese kind of noodle, but
I guess because I was thinking it was a cast iron skillet, so I was like,
oh, could be.
Mm-hmm. No, but whatever. Nevertheless, Joe, describe this to me.
Okay, so he's watching her eat, and initially I thought, oh, okay, so we're doing this sexualized thing because they just had sex, but it didn't quite go well, and she's eating, this wiener, this hot dog or whatever. But everything she puts in her mouth sounds like she's eating metal.
Because it's her teeth. It's meant to be the teeth scratching on the fork. Which, and even like when she chews, it's almost, I put in my notes, pew-pews. Like it's almost a pew-pew sound.
It sounds like gunshots, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, the teeth on this fork. But he also seems scared, but also kind of aroused.
100%. I literally put, they look exhausted and he looks excited.
Well, and she's styled in a way too. I don't know if she has eyeshadow on, but she's also styled also to look like, I want to say, a silent film actress in the black and white era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's got a great distinctive look to her. I was actually a huge fan of her performance.
Yeah. Licking this wiener though.
Yes.
There's something about like tongues flicking that I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I like this very much. It's just a weird look, but she's
working it.
She's filleting the sausage on the fork.
Truly. Yeah. And it's having the desired effect because he does get hard. Unfortunately, his dick is now a metal drill.
Yep. This is all I knew about this movie going into it, is that this guy grows a drill dick, and it does not disappoint.
No, it's not even a little metal drill dick. It is a big metal drill.
And but right before it happens though, like, cause it's like she chomps down on this wiener after she's, filleting it. And then like the light gets super, 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 super bright and like whites out the entire screen. And then when we come back from that, that's when we get the dick. I just love the effect.
But it's also something of a surprise drill dick, right? Because we come back from the white and all of a sudden it's tearing through the table.
Yeah, because it's running. It's drilling.
It's drilling, baby. So she is actually fine with all of this. She is kind of turned on by it. He flees to the bathroom and locks himself in, and she is frantic to get in there and get back to it?
I think so. Like, she really wants that drill dick. Like, and you know, maybe that's because, as you said, you know, their sex was kind of like, you know, before kind of like, oh, it's kind of dispassionate, kind of boring. Maybe this is just the spark she needs.
Yeah. So she is excited by this. She ends up forcing her way in. But then when she sees that now half of his face is metal, she does scream. And then he seems to attack her. So like we're really going back and forth between how much they're engaged or how much they're sexually excited by it, and then they're repulsed or they're, you know, embarrassed by it. And I love how quickly the moods are changing between the two of them. But when he moves to attack her, she ends up burning his face with this hot pan, and then she stabs him repeatedly in the side.
So why do you think he attacks her? Is it because the metal is like overtaking his brain? And like, I guess also, is the metal an extension of the metal fetishist? So does the metal fetishist have some kind of control over him already?
I think so, because we've said this is a bit of a revenge tale, and the girlfriend was in the car.
Well, and I think it works either way, though. So whether it's revenge or if it's like, hey, I love you, I need to get this girl out of the way.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we see that rebar is beginning to explode out of his back, and then he seems to try to incapacitate himself by sticking a fork into the power outlet. So he does briefly electrocute himself, but it doesn't stop him. So he ends up continuing to advance on her with his spinning penis drill, asking her, yes, if she wants a taste of his sewage pipe.
So I read in an interpretation, I think this is in Mez's article too, or in Mez's book, where he says that actually electrocuting himself strengthens his telepathic connection with the metal fetishist. And so this is really when the metal fetishist like really takes over him in this moment. Like, and I don't know if it stops clearly, but like at this point, like, or at least it clues the fetishist in to where he is.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because Evan suggests something a little bit later that, because this is not the first or only time that he will try this attempt. Yeah. But when he does it the next time, it actually makes him magnetic. And you're right, it does seem to draw the fetishist to him.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's planning on essentially raping his girlfriend with this drill dick. And so she protects herself. She tried stabbing him in the side and it didn't work. So she stabs him in the neck. And I love this. The score changes to a kind of romantic lullaby.
Oh, no. And this will happen again later. And I love it later. I actually genuinely love it later. But yeah, this is, again, just not what you expect, especially given all the quote unquote, we've had in this movie so far.
Yeah. It's wild. It's very dramatic. It's very noticeable. And, you know, I think in part it's because, okay, so she's not fearful of him because she's back to being turned on. So this interplay between sex violence and machinery is really heightened. She ends up licking his face as she's stabbing him in the neck kind of slowly, like she's working the knife in and out of his neck. Yeah. Like you would fuck.
This is something Tsukamoto, like, again, one of his main like goals with this was to do eroticism. Like to him, this movie is very erotic. And
it is, yeah.
And this scene definitely clues you into that. But also is because she's on top of him. So she's the top right now, I think is also why she's finding this sexy again.
Yeah, and if you do want to believe that he is either possessed by the fetishist or he is being influenced by him by virtue of electrocuting himself with the fork in the outlet, then it makes sense that we would, I mean, we're about to kill her, but also we see this image, it's almost like camcorder footage of them back to fucking in the woods, but we will eventually learn that that is from the perspective of the fetishist.
Yeah, and this is this the first time we come back to them fucking in the woods, or have we done this before?
I think after the car accident, this is the first time.
Okay, got it. But yeah, but even still, we don't know this is from the POV of the fetishist yet.
No. Yeah, so we get that, and then yes, he does fuck her to death. The way that this is framed is beautiful. I'm not saying that facetiously.
No, yeah.
She's riding him, and it is a white sheet or a white wall directly behind her, and all of a sudden, we are just spraying this white surface with blood.
Yeah.
It's black and white, right? So it's artsy.
Well, and so that is another reason why he chose, outside of like the metal, like the color of the metal and the black and white, but it was like, oh, like it'll be better for the censor boards because it's hard to distinguish blood in black and white.
Yeah, so she is being drilled to death sexually, and we do cut to inside the salaryman. We can see the fetishist yelling ecstatically, like, yeah, I got one of them done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she did, and the salaryman decides to take a bath as the camera roams omnisciently around the factory. It's so gross looking in here. It's very hot. It's very wet. We're seeing condensation on all these metal surfaces.
Ugh.
It kind of looks like a nest, if we're being honest.
Yeah, and when the salaryman gets in this water, like it like steams, and I couldn't like. Do you think the water is scalding hot, or is his body?
No, it's him.
It's him. It's the metal.
Yeah,
Okay.
He's heating this water up as he gets in.
Yeah. Okay.
Which makes sense, right? That's why he's sweating so profusely. He's running hot.
Yeah. Exactly.
So as the camera is sort of like roaming through this space, we do come to rest on a TV set. And this is where we see the doctor, who is played by Naomasa Musaka. And he notes that the fetishist has a piece of metal in his brain that should have killed him, but he would die if they tried to remove it. And we see this without context, so we don't actually know that the doctor is speaking to the fetishist. So this did not make any sense to me the first time.
It's because he's watching it on a TV, and so it's just like, there's no context, so you're just like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
But it's meant to be again like a memory, I guess, that we're only watching on a TV because we're in this whole like, you know, metal taking over, machinery taking over human flesh like thing. So his memory isn't in his brain, his memory is on a TV screen.
Right. Yeah. It makes perfect sense in hindsight.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're watching it in the moment, if you don't know that's what's going on, it's super confusing.
I had no fucking clue what was going on. I only know this because I read the plot.
So this is backstory for our antagonist, right? So after the events of the car accident, he has a piece of metal lodged in his head, which maybe explains how he's able to do some of the things that he can do, like telekinesis. And
that's what I took it as. The metal from the car struck his brain and activated, you know, telekinetic powers. But that's also kind of why I feel like he starts to love the salaryman, because it's like, thank you for giving me this gift in a way.
Right. And also we're connected, right? Like I'm doing all of this to you because we got into this together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we get some static, and then we fade in on the salaryman. He's now almost completely metal except for his eyes, his nose, and his mouth.
Yeah, it's gross.
So this is when the fetishist calls, because, you know, what do you do when you want to get in touch with the person you love? You ring them up on the telephone.
Yeah.
So he claims to know all about the salaryman's secret. And then this is when we revisit the car accident. So we get the full sort of story of what happened. The salaryman and the woman were driving. This is when they hit the fetishist. They took the body, drove out to the woods, dumped him down a ravine, and then got so turned on by the fact that they had committed vehicular manslaughter that they had to fuck right then and there.
So I also read this somewhere too, that apparently they were in the middle of a sex act in the car when they hit the metal fetishist.
Yes. So Evan says that in his article, and I didn't have time to go back and look, but it would explain why they were so distracted as to hit this man, because he is moving, but he's not moving especially quickly because he's got that rebar in his leg.
Oh, yeah. And and you know, they have to finish what they started, which is why they fuck in the woods.
Well, I mean, I read this, and I'm not going to lie, part of this is because I just rewatched Crash.
Oh, yeah.
So I was very much like, oh, we're doing metal and how it changes you and car accidents and sexy times. Because it very much seems like she's turned on by the idea that we nearly killed this man. Like, this is what it takes to get our sex life hot. Normally very boring, not very good. But when we nearly murder a guy, ooh, I'm hot and bothered.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
Okay, so this is when the salaryman once again tries to electrocute himself, but this only speeds up his transformation. We get like new weird appendages sprouting from his fingers, but also we get more sped up traveling through the streets, and then we become magnetized.
Yes.
So we see the VCR get crushed. We see metal cups get crushed. Other objects seem to be attracted to the salaryman. including, unfortunately, and folks, I apologize, I had this in my notes and I forgot to read it off the top. The cat does die.
The cat, yes. I said in my notes, the cat gets meddled and then also with a fish. But here's the thing. I don't think this is very upsetting because it's like clear. Either this cat is just wearing like, metal costumes or they like made like a metal cat creature. So like we don't like see it. It's very much like we cut from a live cat and then we cut to, oh, it's already meddled up. But
right.
The sound it makes is not pleasant.
No. And this is, stop motion. So it's got that herky-jerky feel to it. But I mean, every time we see a new form of the transformation or any time we see the suit, it's so great. Like visually, it's so exciting to look at.
But, they didn't mention Stuart Gordon as an influence. But again, this reminded me of the cat Reanimator.
Oh, yeah. I mean, basically, cats should just not be around people who are in states of transformation.
Basically, yeah.
So speaking of transformation, as the cat is getting it, we're also seeing something happening with the girlfriend whose body has been left in the bath. So she's still holding the knife that she was stabbing him with, and it's connected to one of the pipes, and it starts to become metallicized as well. So all of a sudden, she is back. She's up, flailing about. She's trying to stab him with this knife. And then this was probably my favorite visual of the entire film. It feels like flowers and tumors just erupt out of her. Yeah. And then all of a sudden she ends up covered in this mound. And then the fetishist bursts out of this. Like, yes. She was a cocoon.
Because this to me is like the sequel to the subway.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's where it's like, okay, so yeah, this is the fetishist again, like possessing, like using this body, this female body as a host to get to the salaryman. But in this case, he's really successful and busts out of her.
Yeah. So she's gone now. Like that body is totally done. And now it's going to be the fetishist pursuing the salaryman for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
But I do love this moment, right? Like it's their first face-to-face meeting since the car accident.
Yeah.
So the fetishist introduces himself with a bouquet of flowers that he sticks in the salaryman's mouth. And then he leans in real close and promises to show him a new world.
Yes. And is this when he gets a TV on his hand, Joe?
It is, yes.
Okay, y'all go watch Attention, because I have to believe that Joseph Kahn, like, this is a character named TV Hand in that movie, took it from Tetsuo.
Quite possibly, yeah.
But yeah, again, we're already romanticizing this here, right? Like, again, he's giving him flowers. He's not... so whatever this revenge or hate like that we thought we had for him, if he ever felt that, like, that's not what we're getting in this scene.
Yeah, it might have started that way, but it feels like it's shifting. Like, especially from this point out, it definitely seems like a romantic pursuit. Verging on stalking, I'm not going to lie, because it does feel like the salaryman is not interested, just definitely trying to get away. But it's fascinating to watch the relationship change, despite the fact that there's very little dialogue, and these two just seem to be battling whenever they get into close proximity.
Yeah, which that's kind of the rest of the movie.
It's kind of the rest of the movie, yeah. But Trace, what do you think of this weird cutaway where after we say, okay, I'm going to show you a whole new world, we do cut to this desolate environment, and it's got small metallic orbs growing out of the ground, almost like flowers.
I didn't even mark this in my notes. I think it was because here's the thing, though, because it's one of those things where there's so many images in this film, and it's, by this point, I was kind of in that mode where I was like, wait, what is important, though? And I think you could argue that everything is important. Like, every shot is here for a reason.
Sure.
But this is something that I didn't even make note of.
Okay. I mean, I think you could treat this almost like another nightmare or a vision that the fetishist is giving the salaryman. But in this sequence, we do see the salaryman trapped in this plastic bag. He's being consumed by cords. There's a sped up dissolve where his face dissolves into a skull.
Well, so then what do you make of this?
I mean, he said, I'm going to show you a new world. If you read it, I think from the traditional perspective, this is I'm going to fucking kill you. I'm going to put you in the ground. You're going to dissolve. That's going to be your new world. Your new state of existence is dead, motherfucker.
Got it. Okay. But where the film goes, it's kind of like we're going to make a world together.
Yeah, you could also look at this as this is the natural product that's going to happen after we fuse, we assimilate, and then we're going to destroy the world.
So it could be like, you could read it as like he's projecting his vision for the future into the salaryman.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
That's how I read it.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so we do get a bit more imagery of this car accident, and then the salaryman throws off this TV and makes a run for it. So we see them racing down the street at super speeds after each other, but the fetishist seems to have this ability to telekinetically attack or manipulate the environment around them every time he squeezes his left hand.
Yeah. So the salaryman's always at a disadvantage here, but
yes.
Yeah, this is just fight.
So as this is happening, we get what some people say is a flashback. Again, this was another moment where I said, wait, we're introducing a new character. So we've got either the vagrant or the
tramp.
Yes, thank you. And some people read this character, who is played by Renji Ishibashi, as the fetishist's father. So this is the backstory of where the sexual fetish might come from, because his father beats him with a pipe.
Well, okay, but the way he produces the pipe, he opens up his pants and pulls it out as if it was his penis.
Right. Well, that explains a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so again, this is childhood abuse, maybe sexual trauma. The film is not spelling it out. The first time I saw this, I thought, who is this? What is happening? Like, why are we interrupting this chase sequence so that we can get this?
That's it, because I didn't, I mean, obviously I didn't do all the readings on this film, but I didn't come across a reading that read this as the father. So again, I just viewed this as, this is just a random, like is tramp even like a PC term?
No.
Vagrant. I mean, he is credited as tramp.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
This is 35 years ago. Typically now we would say unhoused.
Okay. So Lady and the Tramp. Lady and the Unhoused Dog.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same ring to it, does
it? So this does seem to come out of nowhere, unless I mean, I almost do like it more if we read it as the father, but I don't. Nothing in the film really clues us into that.
So here's the thing, whether this is actually a blood relation or just an incident from the past, like we will come to realize that this is some kind of flashback specific to the fetishist, because when he finishes this, like basically the man hits him in slow motion.
Right.
And we cut to the opening of the film where we saw him sticking the rebar into his leg. So it's, match on action. The two are in conversation with one another. And when the fetishist remembers this, this is when he falls and strikes his head, and he briefly falls unconscious.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't last for long, though, because we wind up pursuing the salaryman to an empty factory, I'm saying. We hear the sound of a bomb falling, and this is where the fetishist just goes to town with that telekinetic hand clench thing. We're basically destroying everything in this environment. So the salaryman he's basically cornered, and everything is going off around him. We're starting small fires. All of the metal objects are getting crushed, moved around, and so on. And we should note that the salaryman, he was previously almost entirely metal, but he is quite a bit larger now. So he's been growing, expanding, I think maybe collecting some of these other metal objects because he is magnetic.
Yeah.
So it seems like the fetishist is about to finish him off, but he is a little tired. He's grunting with exertion. It's almost like I've been trying to pin you down and have my way with you, and I'm very tired. And this is when his hand falls off and becomes a flamethrower.
Which, cool.
Looks very great. We've not mentioned that this is also considered an example of Japanese extreme cinema, and I'm going to direct people to the Spincers of Horror or I Spit on Your podcast with Kelly and Jess. We've had both of them on as guests before, but I feel like we're probably not doing justice to a number of different references and how other films have evoked these images. So do go and check out their work because they've got a ton on Japanese extreme cinema.
Yeah.
So it's nearly time to strike the killing blow. The fetishist prepares for this, but before he can do that, this is where the salaryman impales him with an even larger than before metal drill dick.
I was gonna say, so I wrote in my notes, I was like, the drills come out and I don't know, they fuck, I think? Like, that's kind of what this is, right?
I didn't read it as the fetishist has one. I just read it as like he was gonna get in there and destroy the salaryman, but I could be convinced otherwise.
Because what he says, like, it's weird. So he says, you see all this rust on my body. My first metal implant was already rusty before my cells began to assimilate it, but your shaver was stainless steel, which, why bring that up? Like, why?
Well, that was the initial site of infection, right? When he was shaving?
Yeah, but stainless steel, I guess, isn't the same thing as metal. So it seems to imply that, like, using a stainless steel on your metal, I don't know. But he says, I'll finish you. Fuck you. Don't you understand? Your future is metal. So again, this doesn't seem like he wants to kill him. He just wants to further assimilate him.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I'm using kill in the incorrect sense. It should be, I want to kill off who you were. Like, I don't want you to be human anymore.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so he's definitely wanting to assimilate with the salaryman, and the salaryman responds in kind using this metal dick. And it's kind of fascinating because it does seem like the fetishist doesn't initially want this, because as he becomes assimilated and is drawn into the salaryman, like, we are quite literally sucking this character into another character.
Yeah, it gets all tentacly too.
Yeah, but the salaryman encourages him to stop resisting. So this is like a bit of a coerced sex scene. And I'm saying that, I'm sure a bunch of people are groaning and rolling their eyes and saying, oh, they see sex everywhere.
No,
but we literally
This
see
is...
like gooey cum-like material coming out of this proboscis.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's very gooey, and then their heads start to extend out of their neck holes. It looks very much. It reminded me of like the Freddy snake from Nightmare on Elm Street 3, but it's like,
yes, that's literally what I was thinking of.
It's all very phallic. Like, everything about this is super phallic. And again, like, you have two men that are basically merging their bodies, and but what seals the deal, Joe, is the score that happens.
Oh, you mean the jazz?
Yes!
That's back?
Yeah, it's like this super romantic music before they merge into one giant metallic Power Rangers monster.
Yeah. Yeah, we spend, 2 to 3 minutes watching these basically long as fuck penis heads roaming around, dodging each other, mixing together, men being consumed by each other, jizz coming out. And it's all to the tune of this soft, horny jazz. It's so gay.
And I think that's why, though, when I read that he removed that tap dance scene from earlier, I was like, but I feel like it would have music similar to something like this. But maybe that's it, though. Like, if you have the music in that scene, it removes the significance of it in this scene.
Well, unless we look at it as a shift, right? If you look at this as either a bisexual coming out film or a realization that you are queer or gay, you may have had feelings, or you may have thought you had feelings, and then you realize, no, when I meet this one person, I feel differently. This feels special.
Yeah.
But yeah, I take your point that, maybe you don't want to confuse the audience by saying, oh, well, you already heard that music. But like, I see this music as being the same as the earlier sex scene. So when he was having sex with the girlfriend and it wasn't particularly great, but it was still sex, this is the same music that we were hearing. So this is another sex scene.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Oh, and you know what? Maybe that's it too, because the tap dance wouldn't be a sex scene. So I'm so focused on this fucking tap scene that I want to see.
I love it. I love that you're fixated on it.
I love a musical number.
Sure. Yeah. So just in case, again, you thought that we were reaching with this, as we're hearing this jazz music, we do see an image of them naked and human. So they are fusing together, but it's more organic. It's almost like, hey, underneath all of this machinery, this is what we're doing. We're forming this very human connection, but like, they're staring into each other's faces upside down, and it it looks very intimate.
Yeah, I view this almost as like, again, like the telekinetic connection between them. So it's almost like their minds together.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the end result of this is that we totally fucking destroy this building. So the next scene that we see is an overhead shot of just the rubble.
Yep. and they're just like this big fucking thing on wheels.
Yeah, we should note that they have merged to become almost like a 2-story tall mass with the salaryman on the bottom, the fetishist on the top, and they discuss how they're going to consume metal. They agree that their love, they literally say that our love can consume the world. We should note that as this gets said, we see white fluid leaking out of the salaryman's mouth.
I wonder if our set, because my subtitle was "Our love can destroy this whole fucking world. Get them!" And then they just go off and like destroy it. So I wonder if there's any difference in subtitles, but that's really interesting.
No, I think I probably just wrote it down wrong because yours sounds correct. Yeah.
Well, nevertheless, love was in both of them.
Yeah.
And again, that's the thing where I was like, okay, it's explicit by this point.
Yes. Oh, 100%. I don't know how you could read this as anything. I mean, sure, you could look at it and say, ooh, it's monstrous. It's perverted. You know, they're talking about destroying the world. That's not a good thing. But you know what? We've talked a lot about queer rage. We've talked a lot about how sometimes love is messy and fucked up. And I don't know. I read this as a strangely romantic finish to this film because, yeah, you're right. We just speed off to destinations unknown.
And I mean, I feel like all body horror has kind of an element of queerness to it because body horror is literally queering the human body.
Oh, for sure. The minute you start collapsing those kinds of boundaries where people are merging together,
yeah,
even if you don't want to read it as sexual, it's definitely queer because it's not normal.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Fuck all you fuckers who use queer as a slur because now we can use all these reads because of it.
Thank you for bequeathing us this gift.
But yeah, this is wild. And they just go off. Yeah. And that's kind of the end of the movie, right?
It's the end of the movie. I mean, they go off down this like super speedy.
Yeah.
It's almost a montage of them traveling through all these different roads, but it goes on forever. I was just like, is something else going to happen? No, it's over. Okay, it's over.
No, it's just pure chaos. I mean, like most of this movie is pure chaos, but like this ending just enhances it to 11.
Yeah. It was a very bombastic, very satisfying end to this film, though.
Yeah, but I will say I am kind of glad it's just an hour and 7 minutes because I don't know how much of this I could have taken, like at a longer bit.
I agree. Yeah, the visual and oral stimulus was a lot. I actually had a bit of a headache afterwards because it's so intense.
Well, and so did you look up the plot of the second movie?
I have not. I have no idea what the other films are about.
Yeah, so Tetsuo 2, so it's interesting. So it's a bigger budget, obviously, because he had what he could do.
He had success, so he got money. But
so it's kind of similar where he has mostly the same cast, but the story is not a direct continuation of Tetsuo. So it's still a standalone sequel. But again, it's about a Japanese salaryman played by Tomoro Taguchi finds his body transforming into a weapon through sheer rage after his son is kidnapped by a gang of violent thugs.
Huh. Okay.
And again, Yatsu the metal fetishist is still in the movie, but it's not has nothing to do with this film.
Interesting. I guess you want to capitalize on the name recognition and you're using the same ideas, so it kind of makes sense, but you want to, I guess, start back from zero?
It almost sounds like a remake of sorts. Like, hey, let me take, again, I'm dealing with the same themes, the same ideas. I'm changing the plot, but I got my same cast, but the general idea is the same. So it's like, hey, I have more money now. Let me just do that.
Right. You know what? We did it with the short, and then we did it with the first film, and now we're just going to do it with the second film with more money again.
Yeah, and so, and again, even Tetsuo the Bullet Man, the 2009 one, it follows a man who transforms into a rageful metallic being after his son is killed in a car crash. So it's like, maybe and that one wasn't well received, so maybe by that point they were like, dude, like, just let me
how many times are you going to remake this?
But yeah, so, yeah, I mean, that's Tetsuo the Iron Man. Joe, final thoughts on this?
This was a wild ride, you know, it's been a long time coming, so I'm happy that we finally covered it. And it's yeah, we've said it's a wild, intense, sometimes overwhelming, often very confusing film. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of folks really struggled to watch this or get some of these readings out of it. But I do hope that people took a chance on it, because I'm ultimately very glad that I finally watched this, because it did feel like a gap in my film knowledge. You know, now I can consider myself a bit more of a cinephile because I've seen this, but I'm happy to have seen it because I thought that this was quite the experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a sensory overload, again, as we already said, especially for an auditory one. I'm glad to revisit it, like, you know, with 15 years distance, with, I would argue maybe a better, cause we had to have written a paper on this movie. I don't know what I did, but I don't think my 20-year-old self was fully prepared to, like, really absorb this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad I got to revisit it. And feel like I was in film school again.
There we go.
Just school, because, you know, whenever I go back and read these academic articles too, it's always like, like, I do miss doing things like that. I do like reading academic articles. I just don't do it as much anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, the podcast is a good excuse to bone up on the research skills.
Well, yeah. Well, okay, everyone. Thank you for coming on this ride with us. But before we announce what we're covering next week, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. If you want to chat with other listeners, join our Facebook Horror Queers group. If you have a moment, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want even more content, please support the show and us by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. If you subscribe today, you will get 316 hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on Hannibal Season 1, Episode 7, A Quiet Place Day 1, Max's Scene, and... I just realized, by the way, like the three X's in Maxine, it's like, oh, it's triple X, but it's also like the third X movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get it. You're like, I know.
It's okay. You got there in the end, and that's great.
And Long Legs. And to tie in with Long Legs, we've got a brand new audio commentary on David Fincher's 1995 classic, Seven.
Yeah, I'm interested to revisit it. It's been a long time.
I am too. But Joe, we did a 1 hour movie this week, and we've got a 3 hour movie next week. What are we covering?
It's another anniversary, but we're going to jump ahead a decade. And it's funny, I initially was going to make the joke, oh, and we're firmly ensconced within Hollywood. But this is a man who marches to the beat of his own drum, so I'm not going to pretend that Stanley Kubrick was part of the Hollywood system. But yeah, we're going to look back on 25 years of Eyes Wide Shut.
This will be a first-time watch for me, so I'm actually...
Oh, shit!
I know. My husband actually really likes this movie a lot, too, and so...
I love this one.
It's one of those that I've been meaning to cross off, but I've been like, it's just so fucking long, I'm not in the mood for it. And it didn't have a good reception, I feel like, for being Kubrick's last film, so I'm interested to dive into that, and again, like, see what I feel about this movie.
Yeah, I have some big thoughts as to why this was not well received, and I feel like you will cover it in your production history.
I'm sure I will, but everyone, until next week, we can cross out Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Indeed, and cross out Horror Queers.